Welcome everyone to Flyover Footy, Flyover Fallout, as a matter of fact. First time in 2026. Santi, you're back on stream, not just live and in person. How good does it feel to be back here for Fallout?
It's great. It's great. First one of the year. Fun fact, Matt, we haven't done a happy flyover fallout for opening day.
Is that true?
Yeah, because City has only won an opening day, the first one in 2023, and we didn't have fallout back
Oh,
then.
because we haven't had home matches. That's right.
Right.
Yeah, good call. And you know what? A draw is a happy outcome given
Yeah.
the, it could have been better. It could have, I mean, we obviously could have had multiple goals. But at the same time, as we're going to talk about, there is a lot of positives to take away from this. So, I mean, do you want to just jump right into the pod recording so we don't give too much of the farm away on this one?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. And I do see that you have the gold kit on. Very nice.
Yeah. I got it. I got it yesterday. So I say, I have to show it.
Very cool. All right. Well, let's just dive right into the pod recording. I think we've got a nice chat building up here. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live on a Sunday morning. I know it was an afternoon game. I'm sure a lot of people went out and had fun afterwards, but we really appreciate you joining us at 8 a.m.-ish on Sunday, where we hope to have, if there's a Saturday City game, we hope to have Fallouts come every Sunday morning. And so we appreciate you joining us. Welcome in everyone to Flyover Footy. My name is Matt Baker, joined by my friend in soccer for this Fallout and every Fallout again for 2026, Santiago Beltran. Santi, how are you on this day after match day? And it is good to be with you.
Yeah, hey, happy we were back. It has been a while. I don't think I had done any podcast on it on this new platform. So excited to see all the bells and whistles you have here, and excited to talk about St. Louis City and about opening day. It wasn't a win, but I saw things I like, and I think it's good progress considering all the new things the team has.
It was a starting point, to borrow the words exactly from Yoann Damet post-game, from this 1-1 City draw to Charlotte FC. The second time we've ever opened a season at home against Charlotte FC. The first time was the 3-1 victory back in 2023. This one, we had a lead. We kept a lead for a little bit. And, you know, that's one of the things that the more things change, the more they stay the same. We had a late goal allowed, but we'll get into all that. You know, we can pretty easily see what happened with that one goal allowed. And we can also see pretty easily what happened with that goal we scored. But Santi, as we always do for Fallout, and if this is your first time joining us for our Flyover Fallout, we thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, we will be with you every Sunday, every post day from a match, as often as we can, to recap, to provide analysis, and just to talk all things St. Louis City. For Saturday matches, it's usually Sunday morning around 8 a.m. We are live. For Sunday matches, it's usually, hopefully, a Monday lunchtime Fallout. But as always, available on podcasts wherever you want to listen to afterwards. Santi, let's take it back to the starting 11 and dive into that. Not to toot our own horn, because we don't do that often. And we weren't the only ones, but I am very proud that we were 11 for 11 on this starting 11 pick. Our predictions hit all across the board. And I do think that is a testament to how much we try to stay plugged in, how much we try to watch what's going on in preseason and matches, pay attention to what the coach is saying. Because Yoann Damet isn't giving us a whole lot of information on who he's picking for the starting 11. But if you pay attention to what you're seeing, the eye test, Yoann Damet seems like he's not a guy who keeps his cards close to the chest in that regard. He's not going to throw you a curveball after having guys in training and saying he prides consistency, et cetera, et cetera. So starting 11 for St. Louis City, the first ever starting 11 for Yoann Damet, and the first starting 11 for 2026. Saw Roman Berkey in goal, Dante Polvera, Timo Baumgartel, and Jaziel Orozco as our three center backs. Rafael Santos and Conrad Vollum were our left wing back and our right wing back. Daniel Edelman and Chris Durkin were our central midfielders. Marcel Hartl and Songbin Zhang were our attacking midfielders, and Simon Betcher was our striker. Depth in this match, which is something notable because we had a few players out. The depth on the bench was Ben Lunt, Lucas McNaughton, Kyle Hebert, Celio Pompeu, Thomas Totland, Miguel Perez, Cedric Toyshirt, Mackay Joyner, and Brendan McSorley. Of the folks who weren't available, we got to address it right off the bat, Santi, before we get into what we thought about the 11 itself. No Eddie Leuven, personal reasons. The club, the players, the starting 11 did offer a tribute to Leuven in full support of everything that he and his family are going through. We share in that full support when they hung that jersey and held that jersey with the team photo. Our hearts, thoughts, and prayers are with the Leuven family as he was unavailable for this match. We also didn't have, for completely different reasons, Josh Yaro, Caden Glover. Those were the healthy scratches. Due to injury, we had Falou Fall, Tomas Ostrak, and Tyson Pierce unavailable. And Mbake Fall, I had a few questions about Mbake. He is likely with the team at this point, but he hasn't begun training. He is expected to start training with the team next week. So on Monday or Tuesday of next week, we hope to have good news and visual confirmation of Mbake being at training and beginning his journey with St. Louis City. So taking it back to the 11, Santi, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was very happy to see the starting 11 when I saw. I was like, oh, Matt and the crew are gonna be happy because we got it. But yeah, it's very reflective of preseason and what Joan Dameo had been saying about the team and the idea he had of who will start. Very consistent, and yeah, some absences. Obviously, the main one, Edu Leuven, and yeah, I want to echo what you said, Edu. We are with you and your family, thinking about you and I'm praying for you. But yeah, it was the starting 11 we expected based on availability and based on the depth we had, and it was a competitive starting 11. Obviously, some key pieces missing, but I knew with this 11 the team was going to compete and hopefully give us a good show of what Joan Dame and the coaching staff have been trying to install in the team and in this new look St. Louis City FC for 2026.
New look, but also I think some of the look that I noticed, at least off the ball, was quintessential St. Louis City FC, if not dialed up to an extent. But it was different in how it was executed. I think that's the big takeaway for me on what we saw in the press. But other big takeaways, probably the big takeaway for me in what this starting 11 was able to do is that we saw exactly what we expected going into this match in general, especially in the first half. St. Louis being more patient with the ball. For large portions of the first half, you saw 65 to 70% possession throughout. They built through their wings. They leveraged their wide center backs. The midfield and attacking mids were connecting with those wingers and the wide center backs on that side of the field to kind of shorten everything up to create this small-sided field where they can then create space to progress the ball. And then they used a lot of the attacking mids to help progress the ball with those wingers on the wings. Now, Santi, this team was also willing to play the ball back and around. I heard comparisons to Olaf ball there a little bit in the sense of it felt like we were being patient. It felt like we were forcing Charlotte to come at us in order to draw them out of position and create space. But also, like we were expecting, this was a Charlotte team that was very much willing to sit back. This is a Charlotte team very much willing to say, you have to come at us. We're not going to draw ourselves out of position. And so I think at the beginning of the match, you had somewhat of a stalemate, just trying to figure each other out. But St. Louis was intentional. They were patient, waiting for spaces to open up. And they were willing to take some of that space. The center backs dribbling up, the wingers and central midfielders especially taking space that was given to them until Charlotte were engaging. They were forcing Charlotte, getting themselves into certain parts of the field, forcing Charlotte to engage them, which then allowed St. Louis to be a little more creative off the ball and find some of that space. And then against the ball, this was definitely a St. Louis team that was pressing high and often. In addition, if you're a fan of formations, which we obviously are in naming, numbering, and all that stuff, it's very clear that St. Louis was shifting more into a two-striker look, maybe even at times three forwards in their off-the-ball movement. The whole point being using a team-based attack to press. And when I say attack, I mean attacking them off the ball. Mm-hmm. Team-based press. And that does look like multiple people into the final third, looking like you have three forwards in a 3-4-3 or a 4-2-1-3 type of a situation. And St. Louis was being very cohesive in their press. This is one thing I saw in the preseason that I was excited to see carry forward. I knew there would be growing pains on the ball, right? And we saw that. We'll get into some of the bad things we saw, but I was very excited to see what this press would look like because the bread and butter of St. Louis in years past has been the press. the desire to turn the ball or to create turnovers and then go direct to goal. That desire to create turnovers is still there. And I would argue that this press without Klaus, it looks vastly different. Even with Klaus, it would have looked different. But maybe the way that our team is pressing now mitigates the loss of Klaus in an aspect, because we're not relying on that singular push point. We're not saying, all right, Klaus, you choose when to press as our number 9, and the team will follow suit based on that. The triggers that Klaus finds when he moves, everybody else then moves. This seems to be more cohesive. And we saw that in the second half with the goal scored, in that this team is trying to anticipate together where the ball is against them and what their responsibilities are against it. What did you see from our press?
I like the press, the way it was organized and the way players like knew where to place each other after recovering the ball. And when we get to the goal, I'm sure we'll talk about that. But aside from the press, which is something characteristic from this team, I really like the way the team was patient with the ball, and Dame had said that that they were going to stay true to the principles and play their game. And some of the players have said it too during the week, during media availability. Like the team was patient, and it took a while to see a long ball. The team really continued playing side to side, trying to draw Charlotte and find spaces. But I really like that. And the first half was a lot of St. Louis, was mostly St. Louis for most of the first half. The only thing missing was the goal. But I like what I saw. Obviously, it is the beginning. It's too bad that it wasn't 3 points, especially considering the next few games that are coming up. But I think it was a good start. Obviously, it's a new system, only a few weeks to work on that. But to me, the highlight was the way the team tried to play at the back and was patient with the ball. I really enjoy seeing that.
And it translated into the stats looking pretty favorably for St. Louis, especially in the first half. The first half, where we did come out and by and large the match flowed exactly as we expected. We led in possession, but we were also able to generate more shots on target than Charlotte. So the possession, which we had under Olaf to an extent, or in early 2025, never translated to danger on goal. Like I think I saw a comparison that the first match looked pretty good stats wise, as did this one. In the first half, for instance, we had 10 shots, 3 on target, 3/4 of a goal in XG 0.75, but we dominated field tilt. That was one thing. So when you look at a team that's looking to possess the ball, be more patient, willing to let space open up and try to be creative, you look for a couple different things beyond that to really test its effectiveness. You look at chance creation, shots on target, but you also look at field tilt to see where were we actually possessing the ball the most. We've got the detailed field tilt in a minute, but I mean, dominating in that with 45 to 27 passes in the final third and 12 to 3 in touches in the opposition box. This is a team that was very much trying to live in that final third. And that's what Yoann Damet told us going into this match and in preseason, that the goals were to be more mindful on the ball, to take care of the ball better, but progress it in meaningful ways. And then when you don't have the ball, to recover it as quickly as possible in the final third. Spend the most time in the final third is the goal, but don't necessarily go direct to goal in any of those opportunities. Kind of be a little more capable on the ball, but understand that if you have the space to take it, because we did see moments of transition in both halves. This team wasn't just saying, as soon as we recover the ball, we're going to play it back. So needing to understand that there are dimensions to this team, it seems, in what their first moves are, their instincts, and their muscle memory. And that, to me, is a big thing that we're going to see. And it's important to track in this evolution of this squad under Yoann Damet, is what are those first instincts look like for this club? I cursory glanced social media to see what kind of the pulse of various sites, whether it's Reddit or Facebook or X or Blue Sky, and there are a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different analyses. You see some folks who thought that Conrad Wallem was being too patient, too cautious in his first move. You like the crosses sent in by Rafael Santos. A lot of folks thinking that Marcel Hartl wasn't coming back as far as he was last year. And in various critiques, good or bad, I would say that that's a very good thing when Marcel
I
Harrell's not
agree.
having to come back. But the idea of our wingbacks, especially in those first movements, those first instincts, that's something that we're going to see evolve, because this team does look to progress the ball through their wings very clearly. We'll show the stats here in a minute. But when you do that, it's important to see how those wingbacks react initially when they're confronted with coverage, when they have a defender in their face. Are they looking to dribble the ball down the wings? Are they looking to pass the ball back to their wide center back immediately? Or has a central midfielder or attacking midfielder opened themselves up to where they can find space to pass around the defender that's in their face? And that first instinct, because you don't have much time. A lot of these conversations are quick thoughts, muscle memory, and instincts. And that's what St. Louis is building. Yoann Damet said, we've only had 5 weeks of this in preseason for him to implement the system, implement his strategy, and get players to be thinking about things in different ways. We've seen trainings where they've had short fields and then grown into larger fields. Well, that's the purpose of those kinds of trainings, is in these moments in the game, you're purposefully creating these short field opportunities on the wings. And you want to be able to make sure that your players have those first instincts of, if you have a defender in your face, which outlet are you going to go for? And then on the other side, making sure that when you're a player who doesn't have the ball, but our team has possession, you understand where you need to be putting yourself in to better help that ball carrier. So there's a lot of moving pieces in this that I was trying to watch for in how this team's kind of evolving. And that's not to say anything about the quality of the opposition. Because again, Santi, this is a good Charlotte team that we were playing, right? We saw it at times, but a lot of individual quality on this team.
Yeah, very, very talented team. But I really like the balance City had. One thing I noticed when you mentioned instincts, especially the first 10, 15 minutes, notice the guys, and I don't know, it was also just first game and home opener, but a lot of times they try to touch very quickly, and it works sometimes, but a lot of times resulted in bad passes or recoveries by Charlotte. But yeah, I think that's memory that it's built with games. But I really like that they were trying to keep moving the ball quickly and trying to, like, the next guy will move or will be where that pass needed to be. So it's a good start, and I like the team is starting to build that cohesion and not holding the ball too long, although you have to mix it up. And I think after the first 15, 20 minutes, the team understood that and was more patient with the ball.
There were a lot of problems in this game. It wasn't a dress rehearsal of sorts, but it was that starting point. And with starting points, you're always going to have things that don't go your way that you have to improve on. There were multiple times throughout this match where the passing just wasn't connecting well. You had missed opportunities, you had missed connections. You could see that St. Louis was trying to have those short passes to open up space, to draw Charlotte away, and the passes weren't connecting. The players weren't exactly on the same page. You had midfielders that were trying to make movements that wasn't there entirely. And so you would have missed opportunities and you would turn over possession. Mistimed runs, players that were being led and they weren't leaning the right way on those initials, just overall slight miscommunications in tight spaces. But I think that's part of the growth. That is the perfect example, these kinds of missed passing opportunities, that is emblematic of what a starting point means in this system. You're wanting to prioritize better care, tighter passing, opening up spaces, and you're going to have these things that they don't work out from time to time, but it's connecting when they do work. So when you do have opportunities that you're able to connect and string together your passes, it's important to now look at last year where we had big finishing problems and trying to correct that. Kind of the same situation. We had a few really good opportunities, not a ton of great opportunities that we missed, but I would say that early on in the game, there were chances, especially first maybe 20, 25, where we had shots on target that weren't really that dangerous. But then later in the game, you had opportunities like Betcher had one in the second half. McSorley and Toyshirt had some late in the game, but the finishing just wasn't there. And call it mild jitters, call it getting back into form, whatever you want to call it. Those are the kinds of things that if when passing does work and it's effective in progressing the ball, you have to rely on some of these players to be able to finish. And that was another thing that I think we didn't see enough of. Obviously, one goal when you had nearly 2 expected goals. You had plenty of shots. You had plenty of shots on target. We just need a little bit more quality to show in a more consistent way to really feel comfortable that, we're getting that evolution of this system, because that's ultimately what's going to matter is the finishing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, no matter how much possession, how many chances you create, if you are not clinical in that finishing, you could end up losing a game, or in this case, just drawing a game. But yeah, some work to do there. But the way those chances were created, I was really pleased with. But yeah, like I can think of the one Max Sorley had, the one Toichar had at the end. Those should have gone in, and maybe on a different day they would. But also, Charlotte's goalkeeper, Kalina, he was good too. He had some good saves too. So credit to him. But yeah, some work to do on the finishing portion for the team.
Kalina was the 2024 goalkeeper of the year, and he was a candidate for it in 2025. So credit also on the other side. This is never a conversation that St. Louis can dictate and do whatever they want, whenever they want, especially when they're playing a team that is universally considered, consensus considered, to be a playoff team and a top 4 contender in the East. This was a home match, yes, but it was definitely an opposition that if we had lost, you could easily have said this team with the same head coach for the past 3 years, with quality in their DPs, U22s, and TAM, and as good as they were last season, not really losing many pieces, they're a team that was dangerous no matter who they were playing, where they were playing, or what style they were going against. So Kalina is absolutely deserving of the credit as a goalkeeper and what he was able to shot stop. But the entirety of Charlotte, us being able to do what we did and enough throughout the game, that has to be, you have to take into account the quality of your opposition as well. And in the first half, like I said, Santi, I did feel like for large moments of this game, it was a feeling out process. Both teams trying to figure out how they wanted to dictate what they were going to end up doing. And then you saw it turn a little bit, maybe 20, 25, 30 minutes into it, where St. Louis started to get a little more patient, right? They were able to, Timo Baumgartel was able to take it and kind of do what I was expecting him to do, which is be patient, have the ball at his feet for 5 seconds or so, evaluate the field, and then start to play it out from the back. It led to a few really good opportunities midway through the first half. I clocked a 30-minute Wallem opportunity where
my God, yeah.
This was bad luck, in my opinion, more so than anything else. Rafael Santos had a great cross in around 30 minutes that was just barely tipped by a Charlotte defender's head, fell to Conrad Wallem in the box, and the movement of the ball, the bounce of the ball just wasn't happening. And Wallem wasn't able to settle the ball enough because he had all the space in the world. And you could see him just loading up his leg to try and fire that home. Ends up just barely chipping it over the goal, mishit with no fault of his own on that one. That to me is a quality example of how crossing into the box when you build from the wings can open up space on the other side. And with Wallem in the box in that way, that's exactly what he told us earlier this week, and what the team and Demey have been talking about, getting those wing backs involved in the attack. We're seeing Rafael Santos equal to the penalty box on the left side, crossing it into the other wing back who was in the penalty box on the right side. That's a recipe for success in what Yoann Demey is trying to implement by getting all these bodies forward and widening the playing field in stretching this space. Like that, it didn't work, but I think it's worth calling out because you can see how that instance of play and that type of progression and action will lead to goals here in the future.
Yeah, and getting those bodies in the box, that's something that also was a highlight for me, because previous years, yeah, we will do a lot of crosses, but a lot of times there will only be one guy or two guys waiting for that cross. This time the team was attacking with numbers, and yeah, it didn't result on goals, but the team was dangerous with those crosses. On that example, Wallem on the other side, but there were like 2 or 3 on the first half that the cross was intentional, kind of close to a penalty spot, and somebody running into it timing
Mhm.
wise didn't work. Sometimes like Hartel on one of them got there a little bit late, or on another one, it was he was behind him, but I like the intention and what the team was showing, and putting guys in the box to take that cross up possibility. So that's also a change if you compare to previous years, where it was more of a Hail Mary that, yeah, I'm going to cross it a lot, and only one, two guys there for a header. But I like the team had intentions and was putting guys in the box for that.
And the worry when you do that is always your susceptibility to being hit on the counter. So if you put bodies in the box, if you have your wing backs so high up on the field, then the worry is if you turn it over and you're not able to recover, how can you best defend? And we saw moments where that was a potential concern, especially starting around 40 minutes of the first half. I didn't make note of too many dangerous opportunities that Charlotte had on the counter until around 40. And then
Hmm.
you had, I think it was Leo Labata who ended up with the shot on goal for Roman Berkey. And it was, in a lot of ways, reminiscent of goals we would allow in the past, where we would have defenders high up on the field. We would get caught in transition. 1v1 defending would be an issue. And then you'd have an attacker that would just be fed a through ball or would be able to dribble to a channel, left or right, and then get a pretty rough angle, but still make it past Berkey because they didn't have any defenders in their way. This one, it developed similarly, but we were able to push Abada far enough over to their right, to our left, Timo and Polvera and Orozco, as they were defending back in transition around 40 minutes. And so Abada didn't have that great shot. Berkey was able to save it. That happened a few times where we were relying on center backs or midfielders, Daniel Edelman especially, to help cover for those wide wing backs. But it's going to be something to follow going into the future, especially against higher quality teams, San Diego, Seattle, LAFC, those kinds of teams here in the next few weeks, to see how our transition defense holds up in those moments. Because we could say St. Louis played great for 80, 85 minutes, but it's those couple of moments where we're hit on the counter, especially in this style of play that we're trying to run on the ball and have our players with the positioning that we'll show the graphic and talk about it here in a minute as far as the average positioning. But it is very apparent that we're seeing what we expected to, but that means that we're going to have a different look and different expectations in our defense going forward. The only other notable things to me, Santi, in the first half, we had some good builds in stoppage time. There was one, I think it was, I want to say, right at the start of stoppage, great build into the penalty area. Songbin had a nice little pass to Marcel Hartl, and Hartl held it up just long enough for Chris Durkin to come in with one of his 4 shots. And Durkin didn't have a good angle, wasn't able to put it past him, but you see the tight space movement off the ball, the runs that we can have as we pull defenders in towards Hartl. Hartl keeps the ball for just an extra second, and it's long enough to free up space for Chris Durkin. That was good to see going into the half.
Yeah, and that was a great run by Dorkin. I was surprised when after he took the shot, I was like, oh, that was Dorkin. Like, wasn't something I would have expected. But yeah, that was a good run, good move, and Hartel holding the ball long enough for Dorkin to create that space. Obviously, he had a great angle, and again, Kalina made a good save. But those are things that we had not seen before. The center midfielders getting on the attack. So yeah, I like what I saw in the first half. Obviously, after so much possession and chances created, you want to see the team going up one goal or two at the half. But
Mm-hmm.
some work to do. But it's early, and we're still optimistic. You know.
Absolutely. Like we said, dominated field tilt in the first half. We outshot them. We had better XG. The stats all told a good story. Couldn't finish, but it looked like what we expected. The second half, the second half opened more or less what we expected to from the first half. St. Louis came out strong. They came out quick. They came out fighting. There was some good link up play, couple corners, couple good shots, good defensive work in transition. I was highlighting these first 10 minutes or so of the second half, Santi, as Haziel Orozco was doing a consistent job shutting down Wilfred Zaha. I was giving flowers early and often that second half to Haziel Orozco. The whole defense was playing great, but Hazi was just doing a fantastic job shutting down Wilfred Zaha.
Yeah, yeah, amazing job by Orozco against a good player like Saha, like and Orozco. If you think about him, like yeah, last year he started a few games, and this time he was given the start, considering that two of the expected two of the center backs that are expected to start weren't available. But now he, with that performance, he's showing he can be in that conversation. But yeah, he was bossing Saha around, and you could tell Saha wasn't happy about that.
Not at all. It was 59 minutes that we saw our first substitution. So if you're clocking how long coaches wait to sub in players, I would argue that Yohan Demay did not wait that long to make a sub. No halftime subs, but I would say with the first half having gone the way it did, you didn't see a reason to sub. There weren't really many players, if any, that were overly concerning. A player like Songbin Zhang, I think, was largely missing in the attack. I think later on, I have a stat: 24 total touches, lowest on the team, even behind Berkey, for the starting 11, at least as far as touches go. And then it was Brendan McSorley coming in at 59 for Song Bin. It wasn't long before St. Louis actually made all the difference in the world in this one. If you're watching on our live stream, we're going to look at that right now as best we can, because obviously we're still in our first episode of Fallout. But we will describe what happens for the audio listeners. This was a ball that was recovered by St. Louis after Charlotte played it back to their keeper. Kalina made a play over to Tim Ream on the left-hand side, passed it over to the left far wing, and then it was Hazy Larosco caused the turnover on Wilfred Zaha. Daniel Edelman with the quick pass played it up to Simon Betcher, who held it up for Marcel Hartl. Now, this play, as it evolved, was the quintessential pressing that I think we all wanted to see. The idea of St. Louis swarming in the midfield, forcing Charlotte to turn the ball back into their back line and play it from the back, and then consistently. So you have McSorley, you have Vollum, and then you have Orozco all pressing. And Orozco able to take that ball, give it to Edelman just to clear space, and then Edelman breaking the lines to find Simon Betcher. Betcher's pass was absolutely incredible on this, Santi. You had Simon Betcher receiving the ball and knowing exactly where Marcel Hartl was. This was what I was talking about earlier. Those initial instincts, those first movements with the ball, and for Betcher to be able to play that like he did over to Marcel Hartl, knowing where he was, knowing how much space he had, absolutely an intelligent play, very excellent all around.
So it's not only the way you recover the ball, is what you do with it after that, and where the players are. And if you look at this play closely, after Orozco's pass to Edelman, you can see Simon Betcher first, like doing a motion to ask for the ball, and he also looks behind him, and he knows that Marcel Hartel is coming. That's why when he got the ball, he made that quick pass to Hartel. He knew he was there. So I really like, after the team recovered the ball, how everybody knew where to be, and Betcher knew where to pass it to Hartel. Like right there, like you can see when Edelman gets the ball, Betcher motions with his hands, and he looks towards his back, and he saw Marcel Hartel was moving. So it was a great play. Yeah, I watched it like several times. I was like, oh, this is amazing. We need to talk about this in the Fallout.
That's a good call out, because right before Simon Betcher received that pass, he had already seen from his right. So he's got his back to goal right before he received that pass. He sees Marcel Hartl with all that space out of the right corner of his right eye, able to make that motion. And then he knew exactly what he was going to do. So this wasn't Simon Betcher getting lucky. There is zero way that you could ever make an argument with this play after seeing how it developed that Simon Betcher got lucky with this pass. This was Simon Betcher reading the field and making that quick decision of what he needed to do. Very impressive work by Betcher in getting that pass off. And the clinical finish by Marcel Hartl is exactly what we needed. He had space. He made sure he moved. He's on the left side, made sure to use that inverted movement with his right foot to get that ball through. But I mean, fantastic work all around. You had the pressing work to a T. That's first and foremost, the pressing, team-based pressing. So it's knowing where we're pushing the ball. And when I say team-based pressing on this one, it's not one person presses and then everybody else, they wait for the ball to go a certain way, and then they start moving on it. It feels like this team was forcing the ball intentionally into certain spaces. Haziel Orozco caused that turnover because he was on Wilfred Zaha as he was receiving the ball. This is what St. Louis is looking to do with their press. If I can reinforce one specific thing, it's that an effective St. Louis press in 2026 is going to be when we force the opposition to put the ball where we want them to. So this was St. Louis forcing the ball back to the keeper. And as soon as Kahlina played it over to Tim Ream, McSorley, Vollum, Orozco, Edelman, they all knew exactly what their roles were. They saw the alignment of the Charlotte players. They saw the back line into the left side with Wilfred Zaha coming back to help connect. And they knew exactly where their path of opportunity was to turn that ball over. And it worked successfully to a T. That's how you're going to see St. Louis be successful on their press. It's forcing the ball into certain areas. And when they do that, they know, everybody knows what their responsibility is. It's not necessarily turning the ball over from the center back. It's making sure that when the center back receives the ball, like Tim Ream, when he received the ball, they knew where they wanted him to be sending the ball and how the angles that they were pressing on to force that ball in a certain part of the field. And it worked well. That's how St. Louis is going to turn the ball over and score goals this year. When Orozco turned it over, though, it's not automatic that you're going to be able to progress the ball that well. Orozco, having no space, quickly gets the ball to Edelman, which is another example of the tight spaces, the short field that I mentioned earlier. Edelman knew what his responsibility was there, and it was to be an outlet for that press. I don't think Edelman had a pressing responsibility other than maybe getting near Wilfred Zaha, but it was Orozco on Zaha, and it was Edelman who was the outlet, the option to clear the ball so that space can be created. When you see St. Louis have the ball, whether it's in possession or having recovered the ball right after a press, you're going to, in a successful scenario, see other players come and provide near outlets so that then you can get the ball clear of that immediate pressure. And then you'll have Edelman look up and see an open Simon Betcher splitting a line and able to get connect to the forwards. So I'm spending so much time talking about this because there were so many aspects of it that worked really well, Santi, but also takeaways for how we can see goals scored in this scenario off the ball. This was, we had talked about on the ball, we talked about possession, we talked about the build. We didn't see a goal in that manner, but we definitely saw a goal that was forced by our off the ball work.
Yeah, and it was great work. Obviously, it's just one game, but it's good to see those movements after the team recovers the ball and Simon Betcher knowing where Marcel Hartel was going to occupy a space. So it's promising. Obviously, you don't want all your goals to be recover passes and press, but when it works, it's also a good weapon to use. But more work to do, and maybe we'll see more plays like this in the near future. But also, we want to see goals from the build up too.
That's right. After the goal, there were some Charlotte subs made. So 9 minutes later after the goal, we had Jabril Diani, David Schnegg, and Kerwin Vargas enter for Luca De La Torre, Harry Toffolo, and Liel Abada. So mostly like for like, had David Schnegg come in on that left side. A lot of City fans familiar with that name as we were looking at him in the offseason. And then it wasn't until 73 that Charlotte ended up scoring. So let's take a look at what the equalizer looked like, Santi. It all started from a throw-in for St. Louis. So if you're watching on a live stream, we're going to try to take a look at that, and we'll talk through what ended up happening for that one. St. Louis had the ball on the side of the field. A 50-50 occurred in midfield. Ashley Westwood was able to recover the ball, play it over to Wilfred Zaha in the midfield, where Conrad Vollum was the one who engaged him. Wilfred Zaha gets it over to Schnegg, back to Zaha in space, and then Zaha finds Pep Biel to score the goal. Now, a lot went into this because it was a turnover from St. Louis in the middle third of the field from a throw-in. So this was St. Louis putting bodies over on the near side, trying to recover possession immediately. You had 4 or 5 players around the ball for Ashley Westwood, and then Wilfred Zaha ends up getting the ball in the midfield. The one thing to keep in mind here in the progression of what Zaha was able to do is after he played it out to the wing for David Schnegg, you had Conrad Wallem still in the midfield area, having engaged in Wilfred Zaha. So as St. Louis had their set defense, you had Conrad Wallem, and it was a borderline set defense. You had Conrad Wallem still in the midfield area after having tried to recover it from Wilfred Zaha. The recovery failed. And so on the far right side of the defense for St. Louis was Haziel Orozco. Orozco moved over to cover that far right side where Wallem had vacated, trying to get the ball in the midfield. When Orozco did that, Daniel Edelman drops back to play that right center back type role inside the box as St. Louis is trying to set their defense. Edelman's responsibility at that point would seem to be on Pep Biel. When David Schnegg has this ball and plays it up back to Wilfred Zaha, what ends up happening is Daniel Edelman takes a step forward right behind Conrad Wallem, and Haziel Orozco, caught between two players, David Schnegg and Pep Biel, doesn't really have a good angle to follow Pep Biel. It's Daniel Edelman's responsibility at that point to make sure that he's got that covered, obviously dropping back on the back line, playing a little bit of a different role in what he's needing to do. But Daniel Edelman, you can see, takes another couple of steps towards the ball, towards the midfield, almost instinctual. That's his part of the field where in a normal defense, he would be moving in that space. Unfortunately, when Edelman makes that move, Pep Biel is able to have that space. Zaha identifies it, and the goal is finished. Santi, break it down for me for what you saw. What else did you see on that goal? And it also has to be said, these are two world-class type players, Wilfred Zaha and Pep Biel, who made that goal happen.
Yeah, and the team had been doing a great job containing Pep Biel up to that point. He had not been a threat. But yeah, it's hard to, like, when you look at that goal, you think, was that like Orozco's man? Was that Edelman's man? Or is it like a combination, miscommunication between both of them? But Zaha has had some space too after he was able to go past Conrad Wallem. But yeah, it's one of those lapses, like maybe miscommunication that you know where to go, like if you should be marking the guy on the far right, or you should go more into the box. I also thought that after Zaha went past Wallem, it looked like the team, to me, it looked like the team was maybe defending too deep instead of trying to engage. So that gave Zaha some time, and Pep Biel made a good move. He saw the opportunity because he was between two players who maybe didn't communicate, or it's one of those things. It's new team with new players, and it's gonna take time for them to get used to each other and know where they should be occupying the spaces. But yeah, it's one of those lapses. You say, okay, during the game there could be 1-2 plays where there is a defensive lapse, and that's what happened. And Pep Biel was clinical with the finishing, but he, up to that point, the team had done a great job containing him, and he had not created any chances. But yeah, it's too bad that that space was created. Miscommunication between Edelman and Haziel Orozco. It's interesting. I was looking at the G+ ratings, and Orozco has a really low, and it's probably because they attributed that goal to him. But if you ask me, I think it's both Edelman and Orozco are responsible for that.
And it's a lesson learned because that kind of situation, whether it's Wallem, Orozco, Edelman, or even Baumgartel, somebody in those areas, and the other side of the field applies with Santos and Polvera and Durkin, one of those players stepping up into a different position, it's going to be a hallmark of the Demey system. We saw it in Columbus under Wilfried Nancy all the time. And if you remember back to some earlier comments from Demey, he talks about positional flexibility. And it's not, to be clear, it is not the sense of Conrad Wallem can start at central midfield. Conrad Wallem can start in the attack. It is in the sense of this, where Conrad Wallem, and I know that this wasn't a rest defense kind of a thing, a build from the back, but it's Conrad Wallem having the awareness and the comfortability to play into the midfield the way he did. He was defending, he was trying to recover, his position was in the midfield. And when he does that, when you have a player who goes out of position because they see an opportunity, they see space, and they attack whatever on or off the ball. It's the roles and responsibility of the other players to know how to cover other areas. So Orozco knowing that he needs to be out on that wing, covering that right wing back spot. Edelman knowing that Volum's in his spot now. We're dropping back into defend a Charlotte possession. Volum is where you are. You need to drop back now and help be Orozco's cover because Orozco's covering for Volum. Like those kind of examples. That's something that I expect to see fairly often, at least in moments of the game. Not all the time, but 1, 2, 3, 4 moments of a game. That's going to be something St. Louis needs to get better at. In this moment, I think that Edelman did what he should have done. He dropped back, like you said, possibly too deep, but he dropped back into the right positioning. It's knowing what to do when you're in that position to prevent a goal like this, or to prevent a player like Pep Biel to have that kind of space. Because you give Biel an inch, he's going to take a mile, and he's going to hurt you on that. But to your point, also, Pep Biel had how many shots on target? 2 shots, 1 on target. This was it. We were doing a good job, by and large, neutralizing Zaha and Biel. So with this, and that's how these things go. You have just one moment where a player like this can hurt you, and that's where a high-level quality player in this league matters to have that individual moment. Being shut down for 90 minutes and then having 1 or 2 chances, that's all you need sometimes. And he was able to make us pay. And so then it became 1-1 going into the last 20, 25 minutes of the game. Santi, wasn't that long though before we had another really good opportunity. We've got a few that we're just going to touch on really quickly before we go into our takeaways from the game. Rafael Santos, the free kick that went off the crossbar at 77. So 2 things. A, how good does it feel to have a left-footed free kick taker with that quality on our team now, where you have Marcel Hartl and Rafael Santos lining up with a wall in front of them, and to have that level of uncertainty be created by the opposition? They know Hartl's right-footed. They know Santos is left-footed. You could offer either way. And Santos obviously showing the quality on the ball in those free kick situations. Individually, great from Santos to see, but how good is it to have this as an option now for St. Louis?
It's a great option. It's a great option. Those free kicks always create good opportunities, and yeah, sometimes you will go with the set piece and send the ball to the box, but it's great to see you have that threat on the left side, and now teams will be second guessing what you're gonna do. Obviously, Hartel line up too. I actually thought Hartel was gonna take it, but it was Santos, and it was just unlucky that it ended up hitting the crossbar. Obviously, it was deflected by a Charlotte player. Slightly, but it would have been good to see a Santos goal of the free kick, something we had not seen in a while.
There's a depth conversation going on in our chat right now. Leuven and Santos on free kicks is going to be a deadly combination from Aaron. There's a comment about Orozco not being the long-term starter at the position, and our focus obviously is with who played in this game, but it is worth knowing, dialing it back to the starting 11 conversation, that we were without Falou Fall and Mbake Fall for this game. And so you assume that one or both of our wide center backs will have upgraded options going forward. And so when we talk about instincts, first movements, there is an assumed quality improvement that will occur once we get some guys healthier. But this being the depth in some of those areas, I think is also that's noteworthy, as we have this caliber of depth now in behind our ideal 11, quote unquote. And when we talk about depth, Brendan McSorley, I think, had a pretty good game that he ended on with multiple opportunities, getting that chance to play the 9. But before he had that chance, probably, arguably, maybe our best opportunity of the game, at least in the run of play in the second half after the goals were scored, was Simon Betcher at 81. Nearly had a goal in transition. Daniel Edelman, again, with a great outlet pass, quick outlet pass to Simon Betcher. And again, Betcher's work leading up to a goal on this one, he played it for himself. Masterful work. These examples of Simon Betcher here are how Betcher is going to best help us score some goals. It might not be that out-and-out number 9. Betcher's actually showing prowess as a hold-up, link-up type forward, where he's able to play the ball in transition for himself and others. And it seemed like he just pushed the ball maybe a bit too wide for himself, getting over into that right channel. Couldn't get that final touch to have a good angle. He was being approached by the side by a Charlotte defender, so he didn't have an outlet pass. When I looked at that replay of Betcher around 81, I did notice there were two City players streaking on that left side of the back post. I don't think there was an angle for a pass on that one, so I'm not gonna discount Betcher at all for he should have passed the ball. I don't think it was there. I don't think the angle was there. But this is one of those things that Betcher had an opportunity, and we just need to see more consistency in his finishing.
Yeah, but it was overall the way he created that play and went
Phenomenal.
around Team Ream was phenomenal. I really like seeing that. And you're right. I look at the two players coming in. He didn't have an angle for the pass. If he will have attempted the pass, it would have been intercepted, and everybody will have been talking about it. Oh, why didn't he shoot? Like, yeah, he didn't have a good angle, but again, Kalina was having a great day too. So you have to give credit to him. But yeah, I was very impressed by what I saw from Betcher, linking up and holding the ball, but not holding it for too long, not trying to just make a play himself, touching it back to his teammates. He did a good job, and I think he's taking that responsibility of being the number 9, being the guy really well. It's too bad that he didn't score yesterday because that will have given him some confidence. But he assisted Hartel. He also had that assist for Max Orley that should have been a goal. So as a number 9, I think Simon Betcher did well, and he showed that he deserves to be given that chance, at least for between now and the next transfer window.
I agree. And I the rumored arrival of Cordova doesn't automatically make me think Betcher's going to lose time.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So later on in the game, we saw the rest of the subs come in for St. Louis, and this is where the depth of the team, you start to see a little bit of a hierarchy develop. The only surprise for me really was that, well, actually, I say there were two surprises, honestly. At 83, Miguel Perez and Lucas McNaughton came in for Chris Durkin and Dante Polvera. Polvera leaving, load management, nothing to worry about. Durkin as well had been fighting illness, and so that was kind of the plan to get him out at some point. He lasted 83 minutes, so credit to him after just being ill and missing training on Thursday. For Durkin, that is. Miguel Perez, next man up in midfield. With Edu Leuven out, this is a nice role for Miggy Perez. And knowing what we know about that situation, Miguel Perez may get more of an opportunity throughout the season in that kind of a role. I thought he did just fine. Didn't see anything really problematic with Miguel Perez and his positioning. Now he only had about 10 minutes, actually 14 minutes and change with stoppage. But, you know, I was happy to see that. What was surprising to me a little bit was Lucas McNaughton coming in. Not surprising that McNaughton's the next man up, but this is an example that we hadn't seen in preseason of McNaughton playing a wide center back role. He played left center back coming in like for Dante Polvera with Timo at the central center back. And this confirms essentially that Lucas McNaughton is that next man up. He had battled an injury earlier in preseason. We don't know the severity, but he only missed, I think, one game. And a healthy Lucas McNaughton showing the quality that he's even reminiscent from what he was with Nashville and Toronto back in 2022, 2023. That's going to be massive for St. Louis with our depth at center back. So Kyle Heeper was the other center back option on the bench, didn't make an appearance, and Josh Yarrow didn't make the game day roster. This is notable in the raising the floor level for St. Louis, especially at a vital role like center backs. And then you had Charlotte sub in at 88, Tiger Smalls for Toklamati. And at 90+3, you had Cedric Toyshirt and Thomas Totland enter the game for Simon Betcher and Rafael Santos. This was notable to me, is that not the Toyshirt for Betcher, which moved McSorley up to the 9, and you had Seti play dual 10 alongside Marcel Hartl, but it was bringing in Thomas Totland on the left side instead of Celio Pompeu, who had been playing that left wing back role in relief of Santos this preseason. You're almost seeing, we knew Totland can play left wing back. We've seen him play it for us before, and he played it for us, or he played it right before coming to us in the Europa League. But knowing at least initially that you have Conrad Vollum on the right side, able to go the full 90. And then your relief for a fullback, either side, is Thomas Totland over Celio Pompeu. Is that as noteworthy as I'm making it?
I don't know. It
Too
was
much to
late.
read into in the first game, maybe?
I think so.
Okay.
93rd minute, I think is too much to read, but something to keep an eye on. I
Mhm.
was surprised, not because Thomas Totland was coming in, just because he went to play on the left wing back role. I thought it was gonna be like for like. Conrad Wallem goes out, Totland goes in that role,
Mhm.
but yeah, something to keep an eye on. But I will not read too much into it. Yeah, I was surprised that Celio didn't come in at all. Yes, I was. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. I was pleased to see Miguel Perez coming in and showing he belongs and he can play at this level. If you think about it, it was the first time we see Miggy playing for the first team since 2023. 2024, he was on loan at Birmingham, and
Mhm.
then last year he was playing for City 2. And yeah, he looks to me, it looks like he has grown
Yeah.
as a player and also as a man. Like it looks to me like he has more muscle and will be ready to fight in the midfield when he needs to. So it was good to see Miggy back and didn't make any mistakes. Obviously, it was just 14 minutes as you mentioned, but I like what I saw, and it's good to see that the that the coaching staff also knows he could be an option. And yeah, obviously Lewin was out, but he can be an option. It's a long season, injuries and different needs. So it's good to know that Miggy is back and is being considered as a game day option for this team.
The situational awareness is important in this moment. So knowing when these subs were made, what the game state was, also important.
Mm-hmm.
Miguel Perez and Lucas McNaughton, they seem more like prescribed subs, but Cedric Toyshirt and Thomas Totland, they seem more tactical based. So Cedric Toyshirt giving us more speed going into the final third, where you want Brendan McSorley, who was brought in for Songbin at the time to try and get between behind the lines, using his speed and kind of open up a different dimension. McSorley, when you bring in a fresh body like Cedric Toyshirt, who can then drop underneath, you free up Brendan McSorley to move a little higher and to be a little more dangerous higher up on the field late in the game, where you're trying to find that difference maker and take that lead. Similarly, and I'm in agreement, and this is like-minded thoughts from Aaron in the chat, that I think Thomas Totland coming in that role was helped defensively. We know what Celio can offer in the attack, but at the same time, you need to make sure you don't concede at this moment. How devastating would it have been? Not saying it would have happened if Celio had come in. I'm not saying that at all. But how devastating would it have been to allow a goal in any way, shape, or form in the 90+3 in the last 4 minutes of the game? And so making sure that you're bringing in a potentially stronger defensively person while knowing that you're having a Cedric Toyshirt enter to help bolster the attack probably played into it. So to your point, Santi, I think it going forward, when we talk about the depth, especially at left wing back, watching the game state of when these subs are made is going to be as important as just noting who subs in. Does Celio come in if Santos is having a rough game at 65, 70 minutes of a game, does Celio come in at that game state if it's tied, if we're up, versus just Totland being the automatic next man up? I do think that we're likely going to see some shifting in that. Demay just does not strike me as a rigid person in this regard, where
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you have left wing back. Okay, if Santos is out, it's going to be Totland. He's not going to set it and forget it. The game states will matter. And I think that played into probably Lucas McNaughton as well. Not necessarily game state, but his positioning coming in at left center back versus central. Like, you want to get his quality of player in at center back. And so a lot of different things that you can't just say clear cut, this is how it's going to be going forward. But we do have some indications, I think, going forward of how we can expect Demay to approach certain things. Last thing I'll say on Miguel Perez is just a few minutes, but 7 of 8 passing. He had 11 touches in those few minutes, so he was getting involved on the ball in the few times that he was in the game. So it's not like he was just in it to be a body and he disappeared. He was active in some of these areas, and that's what we need from our replacement central midfielders. They're going to help up in link play, and if we have central midfielders that sub in and they go missing, then that just means that our attack's not going to be as dangerous as it could be. So it was good to see the success from Miggy Perez. And then when all is said and done, Santi, I want to dive into some of the stats and takeaways as we wrap up this show, is how this team looked. So we finally have data now to go off of. And this is one of the ways that St. Louis, this is the way that they looked as far as average positioning goes for the game, largely in a 3-4-2-1. But in general, the heat map on this field is city red through and through. We were in control, and the match flow that you see posted everywhere with the momentum meter, by and large, St. Louis totally in momentum, in charge of the momentum in the first half. The second half, it definitely had ebbs and flows. First part of the first half, or the second half, was St. Louis, and then Charlotte gained some momentum throughout. It was a little more even there at the start of the second half, especially. But then St. Louis ended with just about all the momentum in the world as they were fighting for that go-ahead goal. And the shape, Santi, if you're looking at the average shape of this team, this looks like I can only use buzzwords on this one: cohesive, collected, attacking, possession-oriented. Balanced is probably the best buzzword to use, and the key to this, because you had three center backs that had a almost picture perfect three center back shape.
I love it.
The wide center backs were in the channels just above the central center back. You had two central midfielders that were average at that midfield line, right in the middle of the field. You had wing backs that were wider than the wide center backs, wing backs wider than the wide center backs, that were in line with our attacking trio. And my favorite thing to know about this is that this is an average positioning chart. And I posted this on social media early on Sunday. So go check out my social media. I think I'll retweet it from Flyovers, but I've got this picture if you're wanting to go see it and you're listening to this. Our wing backs in line with our three forwards, our three attackers. Because this is an average positioning map, it takes into account on and off the ball work. So this is a combination of what we look like in a 3-4-2-1 in our buildup, where we have two 10s underneath of our 9, but also in defense, when we're looking to recover the ball, we have our extra man pressing up. We have an attacking midfielder, one of our 10s, at least one, maybe two, pressing up higher onto the field. Mm-hmm. Our shape morphs and changes when we're off the ball a little bit, based on what we're needing to do, that extra flexibility in knowing what the responsibility is. Santi, what do you make of this, the heat map, the average positioning, the momentum, all of it?
I really like to see that average positioning, as we said, balance, and it's not relying on just attacking on one side. And seeing so many guys past midfield, obviously, is the average positioning, but it's something that at times was missing in previous years. So it's a good start. Obviously, when you look at the match momentum, yeah, it's almost all St. Louis, and it just leaves you thinking it should have been a win. At least the team got a point, but it's points that, yeah, it's the first game of the year, but hopefully we are not missing these 2 points week 34 when it's time to get into the playoffs. But yeah, overall looks good. It's a team building, it's a team growing, as Damed has said multiple times. So yeah, just give him credit, give the team credit for what they did. But it's a good start. It leaves a lot to be desired. You always want to win on your home opener, but it's a good start for the team, to me.
It's a good start, and that's I don't want to say glass half empty approach, but it's the realistic reminder that we are in the midst now of I said it last week, Santi, the toughest 4-game stretch that we're going to have all season is the first 4 games. There's a realistic possibility that we don't pick up any points the next 3 games based on the quality of our opposition. We're going to have to show that we're better than the experts predicted in order to pick up points in the next 3 games. Next week against San Diego is going to be tough. San Diego just beat Montreal 5-0 this week. So we're going to have to continue to improve during training this week, take our lessons learned, and be more effective, even with all the positives that we've been saying today, in order to pick up points in San Diego next week. And then going forward, I think it was, what is it, LAFC and Seattle next? It's a difficult stretch.
Yeah, Seattle and then LAFC. But yeah, yes. It's a difficult beginning of the season for St. Louis. But yeah, you never know. Maybe we'll see a surprise in San Diego. San Diego is a hot team right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's scoring a lot, so that will be another test. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later this week. But yeah, that's what I wanted. The 3 points, like it gives you confidence going into that rough stretch of the calendar.
Right. And what we're looking at now on the stream and is goals added ratings. We've talked about this last year. Goals added look at every action taken on the ball and against the ball. So whatever you do to the ball, it takes into account plus or minus points. You have shooting, passing, receiving, interrupting, fouling. All of those things play into it. So we've got Simon Betcher leading our team in goals added with Marcel Hartle, Chris Durkin, Brendan McSorley, and Timo Baumgartel behind them. A lot of good work overall. Better goals added than Charlotte, where Betcher had 70% goals added or a positive 70. Hartle with 63, and then on the other side, Nathan Byrne, their right back, was their best player with goals added. They didn't have much in the way of the attack. Pep Biel, Liel Abada, Luca De La Torre, all down in the middle of the pack. The one really fun graphic. So there's two others that I want to look at. One's field tilt as the takeaway for the game. So we talked about some of the overall stats where we had 206 to 180 passes in the opposition half, 115 to 95 passes in the final third, and 30 to 20 touches in the opposition box. Overall, 53% field tilt based on the American Soccer Analytics data that we have, leveraging the wings overwhelmingly. 39% of our passes in the final third were on the left side. 44% of our passes in the final third were on the right side. Passes came into the box from those wings, from 50% from the left, 33% from the right. This was a team that, like we said, the data backs up that we're a wing play-based team. And that's how we progress the ball into the final third. That's how we're using our link-up players in the central midfield and the attacking midfield to progress the ball. Defensively, we had an incredibly high average height of defensive actions, even compared to a David Critchley side. 45.01 meters average height of defensive actions. That's measured from the back line going forward, from the back touch line going forward, rather. And then Charlotte only had 37.62. There's an 8-meter difference in average height of defensive actions. And that's significant in Major League Soccer. You're always going to have an average height in your defensive half, but that's a significant difference, even if the line on the graphic doesn't look that big of a difference. I think the stat that I saw that I put on social media was that we had 18 recoveries in our attacking half compared to just 10 by Charlotte. So we were clearly more active in the attacking half when we were defending, and we were better at recovering the ball in those dangerous areas than Charlotte was. Overall, a lot of positives to take away. A lot of improvement, sure, no doubt. You know, we know that that's going to happen, but we definitely have a lot of positive takeaways from this game, and that's team based. Individually, Santi, Marcel Hartle was the no-brainer player of the match, the man of the match, with his first goal scored and the first goal in the entirety of Major League Soccer scored for 2026 by Marcel Hartle. He played all 90. He even had 0.64 expected assists to go with his goal. So he was active on the ball in the attack, and that's exactly where we need Marcel Hartle to be, active on the ball and in the attack. He had 5 chances created, 4 shots on target. All 4 of his shots were on target, in fact. He had 3 touches in the opposition box with 2 passes into the final third. So he's linking up play a little bit there with our wing backs. Took 6 corners, had 8 recoveries, and 2 tackles with the clearance to his name. Marcel Hartle, the no-brainer man of the match.
Yeah, he did a great job. My personal man of the match was Simon Betcher. He didn't score, but he had 4 key passes. He had the assist on Hartel's goal. He also had that assist to McSorley at the end of the game, and he was good protecting the ball, also getting rid of the ball when he needed to. So great game by him too.
I think Simon Betcher led our team in expected assists with 0.67. Also had 4 chances created, 4 shots. Betcher did well, no doubt about it. And even with a miss in the second half, that was a tough shot. And he did great to create his own opportunity in that space as well. You also had notables with touches. So we talked about the average positioning map touch wise. I think it's important to know who, like, this lets you know how St. Louis is progressing the ball, who's leading progression. When Edu Leuven's on the field, for instance, last season, he would often at times have 100 touches to the ball. A lot more spread out in this game, more balance to the point we were making earlier, but also high volume. Timo Baumgartel led our team in touches with 71, central center back. Our wide center backs had a lot of touches as well. Left side seemed like, if you're looking at the list, you're looking at that saying, oh, we progressed the ball pretty heavily on our left side with Dante Polvera, left center back at 69, Rafael Santos, left wing back at 68, Marcel Hartl, left attacking mid at 67. But then you look at the next few players on the list and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Jaziel Orozco, right center back, 66. Conrad Wallem, right wing back, 66. Daniel Edelman, right central midfielder, 65. And Durkin, 60. That's a balanced approach. We're talking just like 2 or 3 different differences in touches between the left and the right side. And you're getting consistency and balance in that back line into the midfield. And Marcel Hartl as having the 4th most amount of touches overall. That's exactly where you want him to be. You need to get him involved in the action as much as possible in that dangerous area. And we accomplished that by and large in this game. Simon Betcher had 35 touches. And like I mentioned earlier, the only disappointing player, the player who didn't really get involved, is Seng Bin Zhang, 24 total touches in this match. That's something that is going to be is a thing to watch for, is can we get him more involved? Will Cedric Teuchert take a role in that attacking mid? How is that going to play out? That's a storyline to follow in the next couple of games.
Yeah, and maybe we will see that evolve game to game. But yeah, I was expecting to see more from Sam Bing. Early on, he was involved. Like the first couple of opportunities the team created, he was involved in creating those. But yeah, then he faded, and the fact that he only touched the ball 24 times tells a lot. So yeah, something to keep an eye on. But overall, I like what I saw, Matt, and we'll see what happens next week in San Diego.
That's right. So as we turn the page, we look at San Diego next week, March 1st, an 8:15 start time, but I think it's on FS1, so we may be in for a much later night next Sunday, unfortunately, as St. Louis travels to San Diego. We'll probably have Fallout that next Monday. This week, we may have a midweek show, depending on how our training availability works. We will definitely be back on Thursday to preview San Diego and look at all the news that arises, including continuing to celebrate Roman Berkey with his 100th career match for City. Had to get that in. Can't go without recognizing Roman Berkey, 100th career match in all competitions for St. Louis City. Also have to recognize Rafael Santos and Lucas McNaughton for making their City debuts, and Dante Polvera for making his MLS debut. Great to see those guys get this notch in their belt out of the way as we go forward. St. Louis remaining undefeated in home openers, now with 1 win and 3 draws in 4 seasons. Santi, before we go, any other games notable to you from Major League Soccer? As we record, we still have LA Galaxy and New York City FC to play, and Seattle, Colorado on Sunday night. Really powerhouse teams potentially in the West, in Seattle and Galaxy. But notable games to me, you've got obvious ones. We mentioned San Diego and Montreal. San Jose beat SKC 3-0. That was fun to see. And the national notable one, LAFC took down Miami 3-0.
Yeah, I was surprised by that result. One more that caught my attention: New York Red Bulls beating Orlando away 2-1 with a few youngsters on the starting 11. One of them scoring a brace, so that caught my attention too.
AZ Jackson scoring Vancouver's go-ahead goal. That was noted in the chat by Dustin, and you had, I would say, a pretty good opening weekend for the Western Conference, for a league that for years now, everyone is saying how strong the East is. You had 4 total wins from Eastern Conference teams and 7 total wins from the West to start off. We're gonna add to that with the Galaxy and NYCFC, and obviously 1 win potentially from Seattle and Colorado. But good performance by the West, and I think that could be an indication that we're in for a dogfight in the West as a difficult conference to play in this year. A lot of firepower with San Diego, LAFC, and San Jose. Portland had a good showing. Dallas had a win. Peter Musa, I think, had a brace. So a lot of good players already showing their form this season. And we look forward to City players showing more and more form going into the second, third, and fourth game. Any final words, Santi, before we get out of here?
No, it's just to stay optimistic, and it was a great start, and maybe we will confirm that in San Diego with a good performance again.
It was a great start to the season. It was a great day overall. Beautiful day. The weather warmed up when you were in the sun, at least at Energizer Park. The Clydesdales were out. The pups were out for the Purina Dog Show. You had Evie, American Authors. It was a great party, great atmosphere, great opening day. Kudos to the club for putting on a great performance overall. And I have to give a special shout out to Motortown Pizza. My wife has celiac disease, and so we struggle to find gluten-free options. Even the vendors in the stadium, most do a great job. Some do what they can. Obviously, Taco Buddha with their corn tortillas, that's great. But Motortown Pizza has gluten-free at their brick and mortar location. They were able to accommodate. Special. They had the clean environment and everything. Fantastic job.
Awesome.
Really excited to see that level of commitment and dedication to all fans in what their dietary restrictions are, from a new vendor especially. So excited for what that offers this season. Also a special shout out to the supporter groups. They had a display. Supporters are standing for, supporters always stand up is what they had. They had cards with player names on the back in the pride colors, as well as supporters always stand up. Supporters support the players in all things. Supporters support everything that the fans and players do. And so we like to see that with the players' names on the back of all of those cards. I don't know if everybody caught that, because the forward-facing images were the thing that was on social media. So that's it for us on Flyover Footy, recapping the 1-1 draw against Charlotte FC, opening the St. Louis City 2026 season. Thank you for joining us so much. For Santiago Beltran, my name is Matt Baker. We'll be back later this week to preview San Diego and so much more. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.
Vamos, City.
Okay, Santi, with this new thing, with this new software that we use, I've learned that if we end the stream, we get kicked out as well, and we go bye-bye. So,
okay.
Appreciate you joining me today. Thanks, everybody. I should have mentioned this on the pod, but yes, I did hear, Stu told me there was a TIFO planned for this match. It apparently ripped during a test during the week, and so there wasn't a TIFO. So I don't know what the TIFO would have looked like. I don't know if that'll ever be made public, or if they'll be able to fix it for a later date. But the card stunt rather, that the supporters did was in place of the TIFO, is my understanding. So really feel bad for the supporters who spent all that time and dedication. I know how much time goes into doing a TIFO. I can only imagine how devastated they were. So we'll just say thank you for spending the time on that, even though it didn't get to be displayed. We appreciate the dedication and commitment to the attempt, and look forward to seeing more throughout the season.
That's too bad. That's sad, but yeah, it happens sometimes. But yeah, I appreciate everyone's work, and also the great display in support of the team, of the fans. That was good to see.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
See you, Santi.
See you, Matt.